Hi, I'm Win, and welcome to another educational video by the Entropy system. The series finale of Sense8 airs on Netflix tomorrow, so what a better time for me to shout its praises to the world. As you all have probably surmised by the presence of Lito Rodriguez as an alter in my own system, Sense8 is a pretty influential show for me. Today I want to talk about what makes Sense8 so phenomenal, and why it is, in my opinion, one of the best depictions of DID in media. Sense8 follows the lives of 8 strangers who live scattered all across the globe. There's Cafius Onyango, a bus driver from Nairobi, Sun Bak, a businesswoman and underground kickboxer from Seoul, South Korea. Naomi Marks is a transsexual lesbian hacktivist living in San Francisco. There's Kala Dandekar, a university-educated pharmacist and devout Hindu living in Mumbai. Riley Blue is an Icelandic DJ living in London. Wolfgang Bongdalo is a safecracker tied to organized crime in Berlin. Will Gorski is a cop in Chicago. And finally, Lito Rodriguez, a closeted gay actor living in Mexico City. In the first episode, we witness the telepathic birth of these 8 people as they become connected to each other's minds for the first time. Feelings, sensations, sounds, sights, all of this becomes blended across the 8 minds, and it gets really confusing for the characters. And, if I'm going to be honest, pretty confusing for the audience. I hate to admit it, but it took me 2 tries to get into Sense8. The first time I watched the first episode and thought, oh my god, what did I even watch? I was too confused and lost to continue, and I gave up. It wasn't until I heard people in the DID community talking it up that I gave it a second try, and I'm so glad I did. By the second episode, things became clear, and by the third episode, I was hooked. Sense8 is groundbreaking for a number of reasons. They didn't just represent all these cultures and countries, they actually flew to the countries and filmed on site. So much research was done on the part of the crew and writers to make sure that each of these cultures was portrayed in an accurate and positive light. The show really hits home that no matter what, we are all just people. At the same time, though, it really highlights the important differences and struggles that we all experience as a part of these different cultures. Cafius is struggling to make the money to buy medicine for his sick mother from street vendors. Kala is engaged to a man she doesn't love because her parents approved of him. Naomi struggles with a family who absolutely refuses to acknowledge her female identity. Through these characters, we're able to get glimpses at stories that we may never have heard or been able to really understand otherwise. This alone is reason enough to adore the show, but for me and many people in the DID community, it's special for a whole different reason. Sense8 never actually mentions DID directly. I'm pretty confident that the creators never intended for it to be connected to DID at all. Obviously, it's not exactly like DID, but if you follow any one character's isolated storyline, the way they connect and interact with one another is a lot like the way I connect and interact with my system. Members of this group, which in the show they call a cluster, have the ability to talk to one another. They can share sights and sounds and feelings with one another. They can even take over one another's bodies if they need to. Every single one of them becomes a part of a greater whole where they can guide each other, balance one another, and play off each other's strengths and weaknesses to solve problems. One of the most beautiful moments in the show to me is actually a really small, quiet exchange between Riley and Cafius. Riley has just experienced some seriously bad stuff and decided to fly home to Iceland. As she's on the plane, Cafius suddenly appears beside her. Cafius has never been on a plane before, and he's in awe of being able to look out the window and see clouds below him. He tells Riley that she's so lucky, and she shrugs him off saying, no, I'm not lucky, I'm privileged. But Cafius, with his never-ending optimism, insists that no, she is lucky because she gets to go home to her father, and because those are real clouds. She asks, what if something terrible happens because I'm going home? And he just looks at her and says, but what if something wonderful happens? This was such a short exchange, but it was so beautiful to me, and it resonated a lot with the way I interact with my system. Daniel very much fills that soft, reassuring role for me. He's constantly reminding me that things aren't as bad as I probably think they are. Kit's also always there to pick me up and remind me that I'm more capable than I usually believe, and that I really need to start viewing the world through a brighter lens. Sense8 is filled to the brim with moments like this. I can't think of a single episode that didn't make me stop and rethink myself and the way I see the world. Members of this cluster are able to step in and help each other in some pretty extreme, action-packed ways, but honestly, it's those small moments and chats in between that make this show the powerful thing that it is. The single moment that really hammered home the representation of DID for me, though, comes at the end of season 1. I won't give away any spoilers, but basically Wolfgang has gotten himself backed into a life-threatening corner, and he doesn't know how to get out. Leto appears beside him and says, "Why don't you just lie?" Wolfgang shrugs and says, "I can't. I'm too scared." Leto, with a smile on his face, says that he'll step in and do that for him. Lying's what he does. He's an actor. Leto takes over and gives a short performance to the bad guys, which is just enough time to give Wolfgang the escape that he needs. As I watched the scene play out on my laptop, I wanted to jump up and scream, "Oh my God, that is it! That is what DID is about!" Of course, I didn't jump up because I would have broken my laptop, but I was still really excited in my head. Both men in that situation were scared, and on their own, neither one had all the tools to get through that situation. But because of Leto's very small and seemingly common gift, the ability to lie, he was able to save Wolfgang's life. If I could, I would sit everybody down and show them this scene and say, "This is it. This is how I survived. This is how I stay safe today." The system works as a team. We complement each other. None of us has all the tools to get through, and neither do the members of this cluster. It's only when they work together that they're part of a whole. To a certain degree, we're whole by ourselves, but to truly be whole, we need one another. That means sharing everything with one another, which is sometimes embarrassing and sometimes scary. We have the ability to feel and experience each other's memories, which is something that is also portrayed in Sense8. At one point, Riley starts having a really intense and terrifying flashback, and Will finds himself reliving that memory as well. This includes all the bodily sensations and emotions that came with that memory. In my system, through good communication, we've been able to gain a pretty good amount of control over who comes out when, and as a result, we're able to better respect each other's boundaries. At the beginning of Sense8, Sun Bak transfers her kick-ass kickboxing skills to Capheus basically accidentally. By season 2, Sun and Will are able to coordinate and pass on both of their fighting expertise at basically the same time. In season 1, members of the cluster find themselves getting pulled into each other's lives in some pretty awkward situations. In season 2, even though Sun desperately needs Leto's help, she stops and asks him instead of accidentally, subconsciously pulling him through to her situation. The journey that they went through feels so much like the journey that I'm on. It's like the writers understood my condition, even though, like I said earlier, they probably had no intention to. There are a lot of happy accidents in life, and Sense8's connection to DID is easily one of my favorite. Without a doubt, I would recommend Sense8 to basically anybody, but if you want to see a stylized glimpse of what it feels like to have DID, definitely check it out. If you have DID and you're wanting a show you can connect with, definitely check it out. Seriously, I cannot possibly speak highly enough about this show. So grab your popcorn, grab your remote, and go binge. Stop watching my video, go binge. Oh, and also, I hope everyone has a really great day. Bye!